Hey everybody, let's talk about the Tampa Bay Lightning. So, Tampa Bay, they're in first place in the Atlantic Division. They have 106 points, they have 51 wins. They've really been a dominant team for most of this season. But I'm starting to get a little worried about the Lightning. They've not been super great over the last couple of weeks. They're 6-4 in their last 10 games. They've lost 2 games in a row. Their last game, they lost 4-1 to Arizona, who, granted, is playing decent hockey now, but is still one of the worst teams in the league. And Boston is only 1 point behind with a game in hand right now for first place in the Atlantic. And going back 2-3 weeks, I would have never guessed that Boston would have a chance to catch Tampa Bay. Something seems a little off about this team right now, and headed into the playoffs, which are only a couple weeks away, that's a little worrisome. For most of the season, Tampa Bay looked like a dominant team who would just thrash through anyone who stood in their way. And they racked up a lot of points, especially early on in the season. And they were just pretty consistent throughout. They've got a fantastic offense. Their defense has been good. They've gotten great goaltending from Andrei Vasilevsky. Things just looked really good. Then they went out at the trade deadline and added Ryan McDonough, added JT Miller, really geared up for what everyone's thought would be a Stanley Cup run, and what still could be a Stanley Cup run, depending on how the playoffs go. It's really Stanley Cup or bust with Tampa Bay this year. They've gone all in to win now, which they should. When you have a team like Tampa Bay has, you should be trying to bring home as many cups as possible now. But I don't know, for whatever reason, over the last few weeks, they've just not seemed like the same Tampa Bay Lightning team. Things have just been a little off, and I don't know if it's because it's a long season and they're just going through a little bump in the road. I don't know if it's because they've been at the top for basically the whole season. They've gotten a little loose, a little lackadaisical, a little bit kind of like, come on, let's just get to the playoffs at this point. Like, the regular season is, we've dominated. We don't need, we don't really care about the rest of the regular season at this point, which has gotten them in trouble because now they're not guaranteed first place, if that's the case. Or if injuries have been a problem, if fatigue's been a problem. I'm not in the locker room. I'm not in the organization. I don't know what the issue is, but something just seems off. And I would be a little worried if I'm a Lightning fan, because you want to be playing your best hockey going into the playoffs, and then obviously in the playoffs. And that's why I think a team like Columbus is really set up to succeed in the postseason, because they were good at points this season and they were bad at points this season, and then they were not even close to a sure bet to make the playoffs 3 weeks ago. Then they've ripped off this fantastic streak. They've won a ton of games over the last, I think they're 9-1 in their last 10 games. They've been playing really good hockey, and they are going into the playoffs playing good hockey, set up to succeed. I don't want to be going into the playoffs playing 500 hockey. I don't care if I'm a 1 seed or if I'm an 8 seed. I don't want to be playing 500 hockey, right before the playoffs. I want to go in confident and playing well. And Tampa's just not doing that right now. Now, they have some games left where they could certainly turn it around. They could win out or win all but 1 or 2 of their remaining games, and then you'd feel pretty good about it. So I'm certainly not saying to be, think Tampa's like going to lose in the first round or anything. That I'm starting to get a little worried, like that, ooh, something could happen here, just because of the way that they've been playing recently. And another thing that worries me is Andrei Vasilevsky. He has played 61 games so far, fifth most in the NHL. His save percentage has been great, 921, but his goals against is over 2.5. It's at 2.59, and that's a little bit above the 2.3, 2.4 goalies really wanted in. And history has not been kind to fatigued goaltenders in the playoffs. The hockey guy did a great video on this. I'm not even going to try and break it down or anything, but basically what it comes down to is goaltenders who play a lot of games in the regular season don't go very far in the playoffs. That's why having a solid backup is so important, which I really don't think Tampa Bay has. I think their backup goaltending situation is not good. If anything were ever to happen to Vasilevsky where he was injured and couldn't play, they'd be in big trouble. That'd probably be a death sentence for them because their backup goaltending situation is not good at all. But even with Vasilevsky, he has played a lot of games this year. Toronto has the same problem with Freddie Anderson, although I think a lot less is expected in the playoffs from Toronto than Tampa Bay. People are really picking. Tampa Bay is like the Stanley Cup pick at this point, and if they go out and if they go out in the second round, that's going to be a huge disappointment for the Lightning, their fans, and a big disappointment in general for everyone involved. So I'm a little worried because if they get passed by Boston and have to play the 2-3 matchup, then they play Toronto in the first round. That I think they get by. But then after that, you're probably playing Boston with Boston having home ice advantage. That's not a matchup that I want. If they end up winning the division, which I still think they probably will, although it's really up for grabs at this point. They're going to play a wild card team in the first round. That should be a pretty. I'm not saying they're going to sweep them or anything, but that should be handled pretty easily. And then they probably going to be playing Boston in the second round, just like if they finish second, but they would have home ice advantage, and that would be a big difference. Nonetheless, for all the Stanley Cup talk, Tampa Bay is probably playing Boston in the second round, and that is no joke. I mean, both those teams are fantastic. They're only 1 point apart in the standings. Boston is starting to get healthy and gonna have most of their big players back before the playoffs, or at least by the start of the playoffs. So guys like Backes, Chara, McAvoy, they should all be coming back. Rick Nash hopefully will be back, although he's, I've been told, the furthest one out right now. But Boston is a really tough team to play against, and they're going to be a really tough out in the playoffs. So you're going into the playoffs not playing your best hockey. You have a goaltender who's potentially fatigued and played a lot in the regular season, and you're going to have an extremely tough second-round matchup. That is definitely worrisome if I'm a Tampa Bay Lightning fan, because losing in the second round would be a big disappointment for this season based on what the expectations were. This is a Stanley Cup or bust team, and if they don't get there, it's going to be, it's going to be tough. So I'm a little worried about Tampa Bay. They're certainly not gonna collapse the way a team like Dallas or Calgary has, but I just don't think that they're playing their best hockey headed into the postseason, and their goaltender being playing a lot of games is an issue. And history has shown that goalies who play a lot in the regular season usually don't make it past the second round, and fatigue really sets in and causes a problem. So that's just what I think about Tampa. I still think they're obviously an extremely good team, and they certainly should probably be the favorite in the East, but it's going to be a very difficult road to get there. It's going to be a very long road to get there, and I have my doubts about whether or not they can do it. I just think somewhere along the way, it's too much can go wrong, and it could be, an early exit for the Lightning. But you could say that really about any team, but there are just specific things with Tampa Bay that worry me. So thank you for watching. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Follow Off the Wall Hockey on social media. The link's in the description. Check out the website, offthewallhockey.com. That's new. No more .weebly, just offthewallhockey.com. And thanks again for watching, and I'll talk to you guys soon.